Modern interpretations often frame the parables of Jesus as simple moral tales, assuming they were designed to simplify complex ideas for uneducated crowds. To grasp the high stakes of this moment, we have to look at the literal geographical threshold of the Sea of Galilee. Thousands press against him at the shoreline. He steps into a wooden boat, separating himself from the crowd to deliver an urgent command. Listen. This command functions as a cosmic battle cry. It announces a territorial invasion to anyone with the perception to hear it. Jesus utilized the story of the sower to launch a kinetic, offensive incursion into enemy-occupied human territory. Ancient earthly kingdoms expanded their borders through physical siege and swords. The kingdom of God advances through the structural power of revelatory speech. This seed carries the encoded blueprint of a new creation. As it is aggressively scattered into hostile jurisdictions, it begins to overwrite the existing broken reality. Because this word carries the authority to reclaim and purify cursed ground, its very presence initiates a structural eviction of the powers of darkness, throwing the unseen realm into a state of reactive panic. When the seed of revelation hits human space, a multidimensional war begins over the control of human perception. Jesus identifies three distinct architectures of spiritual failure on this battlefield, beginning with the compacted, trampled path. Since the enemy cannot damage the intrinsic power of the divine seed, his defense relies on a clinical system of upstream interception. This flowchart maps the cognitive gateway: hearing, leading to understanding, leading to faith. The enemy exploits failed understanding. When truth remains as unintegrated revelation, lying exposed on a hardened mind, it becomes a direct vulnerability. This creates an opening for a rapid demonic strike. The enemy snatches the word away immediately, before it can trigger the downstream trajectory of salvation. This sabotage of the cognitive threshold prevents the seed from ever altering the hearer's reality. The second failure mechanism occurs in the rocky ground. Here, a thin layer of topsoil hides an impenetrable limestone shelf, creating a severe structural weakness. This soil produces rapid visible growth and emotional enthusiasm. However, that outward exuberance masks a complete absence of subterranean root depth. When the sun rises, the plant is scorched. Jesus identifies this sun as the specific trouble and social cost generated precisely because of a person's allegiance to the word. Without a hidden internal architecture to pull from, the plant collapses. Its allegiance shifts the moment the environmental pressure rises. Genuine kingdom formation requires more than initial joy. It requires roots deep enough to allow the word to interpret suffering, rather than letting suffering overwrite the word. The third zone of conflict is the thorny ground. This threat is deceptive because it involves no sudden removal or dramatic collapse. This is a deceit of coexistence. Two competing realities occupy the same interior ecosystem, forcing the word to share resources with deeply rooted rival attachments. Jesus identifies the specific choking agents, the consuming anxieties generated by this age, and the false promise of security. Material wealth functions as a primary counterfeit lordship. It monopolizes internal resources, demanding the attention and desire originally intended for the kingdom. These thorns systematically strangle the word's access to the heart. Worldly concerns eventually dictate actual decisions, while the truth is relegated to the periphery. This results in an arrested maturation. The person maintains a religious lifestyle, but lacks kingdom power because the word no longer holds governing primacy. The telling of the parable actively separates the hearers. The massive crowd goes home with only a surface-level story about farming, remaining blind to the spiritual war they just encountered. However, a small circle stayed behind with Jesus. These disciples were just as confused as the crowd, but their response to that confusion was different. They demonstrated epistemic humility. They acknowledged their own blindness, drew near to the revealer in private, and asked for the mystery to be explained. This pursuit prevents the enemy from stealing the seed. It initiates the structural integration of revelation, allowing the word to move from a passing sound to a permanent anchor in the mind. This humble pursuit of the king in the private space creates the insiders of the kingdom. Good soil describes a resilient heart that welcomes the word, clings to it under pressure, and subdues rival desires. The trajectory of the word outpaces the losses on the field. The enemy's power is purely subtractive, while the kingdom seed yields an exponentially multiplying harvest, reclaiming the cursed earth 30, 60, and 100-fold. This harvest marks the dismantling of the dark jurisdictions of the powers, achieved one integrated mind at a time. Kingdom victory is achieved as revelation becomes deeply rooted, transforming weak humans into multiplying outposts of a new creation.